I'm Richard Raffan, and in this video I've put together a few clips that show skew chisels and spindle gouges, shear cutting and peeling. Now this is a shear cut with a nice curly shaving coming off the lower portion of a skew chisel. You can see where the area of the cut is by the dust. Things to notice, just put the chisel back where it was. The thing to notice here is the angle of the tool to the oncoming wood. Now the constant in wood turning is the wood, which is always coming down onto the tool. And if you keep that edge at around 45 degrees to the oncoming wood, you will get a nice curly shaving. Just trying to do this without shaking the camera. If you have the tool any steeper, so the angle's much steeper to the oncoming wood, you'll get a shaving, but it'll be much narrower, little kind of mean, doesn't cut quite so well. And if you take it round the other way, so you've got a really broad shaving using the upper part of the tool, there's space in under here, and that's a catch waiting to happen because the wood will bear down on the unsupported edge, and that leads to a catch. Now let's have a look in relation to gouges. If you want to get a shear cut, you're going to be using the portion of the edge. You can try and bring the portion of the edge at an angle to the oncoming wood. So that's going to be there. Where you're getting a curly shaving. As opposed to just using the nose of the tool, where you get a roll. And you can also see that the grain in here is slightly torn. So what we're trying to avoid is the curl. We're looking for the spirals. Here we have a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. Same thing applies. See here that as the tool goes down into a cove, into a groove, you've got that angle maintained. You should go into the wood and you get a pretty nice clean cut. So much better to do it that way and make a groove with a skew point going in. Might be quick, but it's not very tidy. You can see a lot of very torn grain there. This is a 1 inch spindle roughing gouge. I don't actually possess one, I borrowed this. I much prefer the more shallow Continental Guard which you saw before. This is used generally as a peeling tool. We'll have a look at this a little bit later from the side. If you want to get a shear cut with it, then you really have to roll the tool around at an angle, and I can't actually see what's happening from my position. I can see if I'm in that position, but I don't find it a particularly good tool. It's very important to know the difference between peeling and scraping. Scraping, the tool is pointed in straight at the lathe axis, put it on that line, and it usually makes a pretty terrible noise because it's just pulling the fibres. The fibres are like my fingers. It's just poking the edge into there and ripping off the bundle. What we're trying to do is peel them off. So the bevel shoulder here is up on the wood. The wrist is a little bit low for this size trim, this size diameter. I'll start up there. So I've got the bevel riding on the wood, then I raise the handle until the edge is just under the surface of the wood. And what I'm trying to get off this time is a roll of timber like that, a thin roll. This is in contrast to the shear cut, when the edge was angled at around 45 degrees to the oncoming wood. Now we're around here, the tool's flat on the wrist, and we've got two types of peel. You want to take a lot away very quickly. You're just below the surface, and the handle has to come up as you go, and if you're in a real hurry, you can take an awful lot of wood away extremely quickly, although it does leave you an extremely rough surface on the end grain here. Now let's look at different kinds of peeling cuts here. I'll just take away the rest of that knot. I've got a slightly radiused edge here. My skews, this one's about 10 to 15 degrees off the square, slight radius, and one of the reasons for that is that I use what I call a low peel, just using either the center of the edge, or if I'm cutting something like a box lid or a shoulder, it allows me to get in and just take a very gentle shaving, and it's a very accurate way of getting the diameter you want without too much risk. So once again, the shear cut with the tool at an angle to the oncoming wood, the peeling cut, the rapid peel with the edge just below the surface, and then I can raise, and I can use the bevel side here, get that done. And the low peel, which you'll see me using in the box video. And that's it. In fact, that wasn't it. I got carried away with the skew chisel because peeling wood is so enjoyable with that, that I forgot to show you the gouge. So here's the big gouge again. So when it's cutting really nicely, I get the bevel rubbing. You see I raise it up until the shaving comes off. A very big one. I've got the 1 inch. Still does a pretty good job. But the problem is if I want a shear cut with it, I can't see what I'm doing unless I'm going this way, and that really isn't comfortable for other reasons. And finally, here's my Continental Guard. which is more of a slicing cut all the way along here. If I want to use the broader edge, I can bring it around and take a pretty heavy cut like that. But I can also do that with my spindle gouge. And you can even do that with a bowl gouge. This is my 3/8 bowl gouge, asymmetric bowl gouge. Got a fairly short right wing. It should get off a pretty good shearing. So all you really need when you're roughing down as a beginner is just a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, and spend the money you might spend on a big deep fluted gouge on other tools, which you'll probably find more useful. And that really is all.